Welcome to Beyond the Back Cover. Ever get that feeling after reading a book, kind of like you need a shower? That's the housemaid for you. Freida McFadden knows how to write a thriller that gets under your skin. Today, let's take a deep dive into this book. Try to figure out what makes it so disturbing, yet so captivating.
It's not your typical, light thriller. This one, The Housemaid, drops you right into the deep end. You got Millie, the main character, trying to rebuild a life after a decade in prison, talk about starting from scratch. And then she gets a job as a maid working for this crazy wealthy family, the Winchesters. Sounds like a dream come true, right?
Yeah, at first glance. But wouldn't you think a family like that, with all that money, would be super careful? Like background checks would be a given. But they don't even blink. Right off the bat, something feels off.
It's true, there's this underlying sense of unease, and it just gets amplified when you meet the Winchesters. Andrew, the husband, is charming, kind, almost too good to be true. And then, well, there's his wife, Nina. She's, how do I put this? Messy, mean-spirited, almost unhinged. You can't help but notice the power imbalance in their relationship. Adds to the tension, that's for sure.
It's a total train wreck in slow motion. You can see it coming, but you just can't tear your eyes away. And Millie, well, she's drawn to Andrew's good nature, obviously, and Nina just pushes her away. And that's when things start to spiral. Millie develops this dangerous obsession. She wants Nina's life, and she's ready to take it.
The interesting thing is, Millie, the protagonist, she's not your classic sympathetic heroine. She's flawed, manipulative, and her actions, well, let's just say, they get pretty disturbing. But somehow you're still pulled into her story. You get caught up in her desperation, her desire. And Nina, on the other hand, she's like this over-the-top caricature of a spoiled, rich wife. Almost like the author deliberately made these characters unlikable to make us question our own judgment.
You said it. It's like McFadden is saying, hey, nobody's perfect, everybody's got their darkness. But in this book, the darkness is turned up to 11.
Exactly. That's what makes The Housemaid so gripping. It's this twisted, dark exploration of obsession, social class, and what people will do to get what they crave. So for our deep dive today, why don't we unpack some of these key elements? What makes this book such a wild ride? Let's start with Millie's past and how it shapes her present. Then we'll dig into let's just say, the fascinatingly messed up dynamic between the Winchesters. And finally, we'll explore the book's take on morality, how the author pushes those boundaries, how far is too far.
Yeah, sounds like we've got a lot to unpack. But before we go there, have you ever, even just for a second, felt a twinge of envy for someone, even though you knew they were, let's say, not a great person? Not that you'd want to trade places, but there's this little part of you that wants what they have. That's the kind of feeling this book brings up. It's uncomfortable, and it sticks with you long after you've finished reading.
That feeling of envy, oh, it's so relatable. It's a guilty pleasure, and The Housemaid, it really taps into that.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Millie's past, the years in prison, it's like this weight she carries around. You can really sense her need to escape that, to prove that she's more than her mistakes. But the funny thing is, that very need, that desperation, it pushes her to make, well, even more questionable choices.
Totally, like a dog chasing its tail. Makes you wonder, how much can you really outrun your past? Is it always there, just waiting? Speaking of things lurking, let's talk about the Winchesters. Their whole relationship is like ready to blow.
Oh, for sure. Andrew, with his perfect manners and generosity, he's almost too good to be true. It makes you wonder, is he really that innocent? Or is there something darker under the surface? And Nina, she's a whirlwind, unpredictable. You can practically feel the tension radiating off her.
Yeah, and you just know their marriage is all built on secrets. Like you're waiting for the cracks to show. It's unnerving, makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells the whole time. And it's interesting how the author uses their mansion, right? This huge, luxurious place. But there's this sense of decay, something off. Like the house itself is a character, reflecting all the darkness inside the family.
Like those creepy Gothic novels where the house is practically alive, full of secrets. And Millie, she's the outsider thrown into this mess. Like a bug to a light, you just know she's going to get burned.
And as she gets more entangled in their lives, the lines get blurry. Reality and fantasy start to mix. She sees herself as Mrs. Winchester, putting on Nina's clothes, taking over her role. It's scary because you see her losing herself, completely consumed by this obsession.
It's really smart how the author shows how easily we're tricked by appearances, by the image of a perfect life. But, be careful what you wish for, right?
Oh, exactly. And in The Housemaid, well, those wishes lead to some pretty dark places. Which brings us to our last point, the book's take on morality. The author isn't afraid to show characters who aren't just good or bad. You've got Millie, the ex-con with a past, but then you have the Winchesters, who look perfect but have their own issues, their own capacity for cruelty. It makes you think twice about who's really innocent here.
It does, and that's what really gets to you. It makes you look at the darker side of, well, of human nature, the part of us that can be envious, jealous, even violent.
Like the author is holding up this mirror and saying, hey, this is part of us all. We might try to ignore it, but it's there. And in this book, well, that darkness is front and center.
And that's what makes this book more than just a thriller. It's a psychological journey about the choices we make and what comes after.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? About what we do when we're desperate, when we feel like we've got nothing left to lose. And it reminds you, even those picture-perfect lives, there are always secrets hiding underneath. What really got to me was how the author used those secrets to build up the suspense. You're always on edge, waiting for the truth to come out. And when it does, well, let's just say it's not what you expect.
That's what makes a good thriller, right? Playing with your expectations, keeping you guessing. The Housemaid definitely does that.
Yeah.
But beyond all the twists, I think what stuck with me was how the book explores social class, how it shapes what we want and why we do things. Millie wanting Nina's life, it's not just about the fancy stuff. It's about belonging, having security, something she's never really had. That's so true. It's about wanting to escape the life she's always known, break free from all the hardship. And it makes you wonder, how much of what we do is really our own choice, and how much is because of where we come from? Think Millie would have made those choices if her life had been different, if she hadn't gone to prison.
It's a question that stays with you even after you finish the book. It's like the author is asking us to look at why people commit crimes, to look at things from their perspective. And it reminds us everyone has their own story, their own reasons for being the way they are.
Right. It's easy to just label someone, call them a criminal, a bad person. But the Housemaid, it makes you look past those labels, see the human side, even in the characters who mess up. It makes you wonder, what would you do in their place? Would you be any different?
It makes you think, that's for sure. And that's why I like this book. It's a fun read, yeah, but it also sticks with you. It makes you think about what you believe. It's the kind of book you want to talk about with others, see what they thought.
Absolutely. It really gets under your skin, leaves you with a lot to chew on. Well, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into The Housemaid. But before we go, I have one last thought for you. We've spent a lot of time on Millie's story, but what about the Winchesters? What are their secrets hiding? And how will they deal with what they've done? Something to think about as you explore this twisted and gripping tale.
Yes, indeed. In the world of The Housemaid, things are not always what they seem. And the truth, when it finally comes out, can be both shocking and eye-opening. So, get ready for a wild ride.
Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Back Cover. Until next time, happy reading.